Okay. So on behalf of all of the Popol Na team, we just wanted to wish everybody a nice welcome. We're going to get started in a little bit. And I just want to again reintroduce everybody that helps these presentations be put together. Everybody kind of plays their part and helps us bring this together. So thank you. And we're so happy that you all are with us. We've set up a new email. If you all want to take some time to screenshot this, these are where we would love for you to send us any questions, any thoughts. I know that I've been using my email, but my email is not set up in the way that it sometimes people go to spam. So we set up this Gmail so that way we can find your responses a little bit better. So please, if you all could take a screenshot, I'll give you all like about a couple of seconds to do that. That way, if you have any questions, you all can let us know. And then in the chats, or if you want to raise your hand, let us know where you're from. Please put it in the chat so we can see where everybody is coming from. But we'll have some community time at the end. So if you and your chat want to let us know where you're all coming from, it would be great. Just as a reminder, we do have a Patreon page for those folks that don't know what a Patreon is. This is a way that you can support us monetarily. As we've gone through in most of our events in the past, the profits for these, or the proceeds, will go directly to communities in Guatemala, indigenous Maya communities, to set up different initiatives. One of them being La Red. It's a social restaurant that is in Xela, Guatemala, and they help folks who've migrated back to Guatemala set up. But again, there's other initiatives. Right now, we currently have about 36 subscribers. Our goal in the near future is to be somewhere around 50 or 60. Once we reach that goal, we'll be able to expand this a little bit more. We're hoping to, at some point, have guest speakers. We can have also a podcast. So we're hoping to expand this a little bit more. I know some have sent me some ideas of what you want to do. We're more than welcome. We'll respond back better with the email that we just shared. But please, if you could support us through this. Obviously, these events are free, and they will always continue to be free. But if you all could support us through the Patreon, again, it's only $8 a month. That's like about a Starbucks coffee. So if you could let us please help us out through that as well. And also you get exclusive stuff. You'll get different things that we're able to post and show you through this Patreon. It's an application or a website that you can use it. But of course, we also have all this information that we supplement these discussions with for free at the Popol Na blog at sangreindigena.com. We don't post here as often as we do on the Patreon, but we also post the recordings of these. And just as a reminder and introduction, we have a YouTube channel now that we would love for you also to subscribe as well. This is where we post not only the recorded events, but we also have all the different things that we make throughout these events, like the graphics, the videos, and all of that. So please subscribe on YouTube. In the chat, our teammate Jason is putting in the links. But again, feel free to ask for those links, and of course share them with anyone and everyone. So we'll get started. I know those who've joined us before have seen this graphic. This is a really important thing that we go over, because when you study this history from a scholarship or academic point of view, a lot of the times they'll try to box or categorize or label this history and try to do it in a nice, neatly package. But what we have shown already in the history that we've shown, that doesn't work that way. And we here at the Popol Na follow more of a nature, the way nature considers order versus chaos. So we always kind of like to show this graphic. So I know that sometimes for us that have studied here or grown up here, sometimes it's hard for us to kind of sometimes follow this history in an order that like linear, for example, that is linear, but obviously we're not following that. So we'll get started. We also always just show this as we want to make sure that you're aware that this tradition of teaching goes a long way, and this goes far back, and this is just a simple way of viewing this. This is from a vase where it shows a teacher showing his students how to count, but we'll talk a little bit more about that at some point. This is the agenda we'll go over today. We have a lot planned out for you. So we're excited to be able to start this off with you. As always, or as we did last time, we want to provoke some thought in the beginning of these presentations, so that way you can kind of get ready for what are some of the things that we will talk about. And here's the questions of the day. What is the relationship between the day on the Cholk'ich and the Rihal Mam? And how do you place the tree of the Tz'ite in history and cosmovision? I know that that probably won't make sense to you now. So maybe if you want to take a screenshot at the end of the presentation, you'll kind of know what exactly we're trying to ask here. So these are just for you to again to provoke some thought. So let's get started. Last week or last 2 weeks, we talked very briefly about the long count. Today we're going to go very specific, and we'll continue to share this long count, because the best way to learn is repetitive, in a repetitive form. So we'll always start off these events or these discussions by talking about the long count and the Cholk'ich. And one of the reasons why we do that is because that's how we're going to ground ourselves in this history. The whole point of this is to decolonize our way of thinking, but also the way that we look at time. And our ancestors had a very unique and a really complex of measuring time. And we all want you to get used to kind of hearing some of the verbiage and the way that we measure time. So this graphic here is the way that our ancestors measure time. Today, we measure time by days, by years, by centuries, by weeks. Our ancestors obviously didn't have those measurements of times. They have these 5 units. Obviously, there will be more. There's other counts of time or measuring time that our ancestors have, but we're only gonna, in the beginning, learn these 2 first. Is the long count, which you're looking at now. So the king represents 1 day. The winal represents 20 kings or 20 days. The tun represents 18 winales or 360 days or approximately 1 year. The katun is 20 tuns, approximately 7,200 days or approximately 20 years. The baktun is 20 katuns, 144,000 days or 400 years approximately. As we have shared in the past discussions, our ancestors were extremely creative, and there was different ways to write these measurements of time. These are just an examples of a few, but today and mostly we're going to concentrate on this variation of how they wrote these measurements of time. And we're going to keep drilling these glyphs every time that we discuss this, because you know, in today's age, we kind of already know when somebody texts us as a memoji, or when we see a logo from a corporation or a company, exactly what that means. So, for example, if I show you 2 golden arches, I don't have to explain to you that that place sells burgers and it's McDonald's, right? Just a simple explanation of why these glyphs are so important and why we're going to repetitively show them to you. But just to make it simple, we're going to concentrate on these 5s that represent these 5 measurements of time in the long count. So this is a much simpler view of it, right? Again, we'll go over this again. So you can kind of get used to this, but a keen is equals 1 keen in 1 day. A winal is 20 keens in 20 days. A tune is 18 winales, 360 days, approximately 1 year. A katoon is 20 tunes, 7,200 days, approximately 20 years. And a baktoon is 20 katoons, 144,000 days, approximately 400 years. So this is one baktoon that you're watching, that you're seeing here. Of course, our ancestors thought in cyclical form. And this long count consists of 13 baktoonis that completes a cycle. So another way to visualize this, we showed this last time, but it's a wheel that turns, sort of like a digital clock. We're working on a different way of showing you this long count that is a visual representation of all of this. But again, we're going to continue to repetitively show you this every event that we do, so that way we can get grounded on the way our ancestors saw time. So let's play this this video really quick, and then we'll discuss further. It's going to be a really quick, as the first wheel starts turning all the way to your right. That's the keen, right? As we discussed, 20 keens, right, equals a winal. That's the next wheel. So it's turning, and as we discussed, 18 winales right here equals a tune. Now the tune's going to move really quick. So there's 20 tunes equal a katoon, which is the next wheel. That one starts moving, right? Again, we also discussed that it's 20 katoonis that equal a baktoon, and that next wheel will go, right? The other wheels are still spinning because that's how, like, think about a digital clock, right? And that's one baktoon, okay? So hopefully you didn't pay attention, or you did pay attention to the dates that were on the bottom. But because we look at time linear right now, I'm only going to show this graphic once because this is not how our ancestors saw the time. But for us that think in a linear way, this is how I help me understand it a little bit better. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you right now, but just follow me. So we know that our ancestors began counting time on August 13th, 3114 before, I'm not gonna say that, BCE, right? Right here. And, and then that complete cycle ended on December 21st of 2012 of our time, okay? You can see that if you follow that arrow on the left, Bree is so nicely annotating that for us. And if that date sounds familiar to you, it's because that's when the big scare of the Maya, aka Doomsday, happened. Obviously, we know that's not true. We're still here, but that was something that that our ancestors never talked about. That's for another place and another time. But between those two dates, we know that there was 13 baktoons that were completed. That means there was 260 katoons that were also completed. That means also 5,200 tunes were completed. And then that also means that 93,600,000 winales were completed. And that also means 1,872 keens were completed. So what does that mean for us at our time? That means that 1,872,000 days were completed, which equates to approximately 5,200 years. So now, since that count was completed, and of course, what we've always known, the world didn't end, we started a new cycle. When we write this cycle now, the part where it may confuse people is that it's written with the 13 baktoon, but that doesn't mean that we're in the 13 baktoon. That just means that it's been completed from the previous era. So today's date is September 10th, 2022. So how many katoons have been completed? 0. 9 tunis, which is 162 winales, which means 3,240 keens, which means 3,240 days, which equates to approximately 9 years. So if your head is not spinning, then you're not normal, or you're a mathematician. No shade at Bree, but this is something that we want to get used to, because these are the mathematics and this is the way that our ancestors measured time. So when we talk, what we want to get to is a point when we're talking about our history, is that when we say, hey, this city was established in the 7th Baktun, we know from a Gregorian standpoint, it's somewhere around 200 AD. So if, for example, if we talk about the Olmecs, we say the Olmecs were somewhere around the 4 Baktun, we know that that is somewhere between 1142 BCE. Again, this was something that we'll continue to repetitive talk to you about, because that's the whole point of this, is decolonizing our time. Again, we talked about another measurement of our time that our ancestors had, and that was the Cholqui and the Tzolkin in Yucateco. It's important to know what these words mean. Both of them in their respective Maya languages means the order of the days, or the order of the suns. Qi, or Qin, as we have explained in the past, translates to sun, but obviously for our perspective, that means days. So it's important. And obviously other Maya languages also have similar names for this, that have similar translations for them. We want to do something different today. In the past, we've used the cartouche style of the 20 days glyphs that we've shown in the past. They're called cartouches because that's what academics and scholars kind of call this style. But today we're going to switch it to the codex style that you'll see as we start seeing or studying more of the codices. We'll start seeing more of these glyphs in this format. But also what we want to do is also help you understand the language. Approximately 33 different Maya languages have different names. Some of them may be similar, some may be different for these 20 days. But it's just also important to notate that it wasn't just the Maya that tracked this movement of time. It was other cultures. As we can see later on, we also tell you the name of what the Mexica or the Aztecs or the Nahuatl people used to call these days. So these are in Quiche. So what I want to do today, just a continuation of what we did last time, is learn how to count the 20-day names with our hand. So if you look at the graph to the left, I want you to take your hand. You don't have to put your camera on. It's okay. But the thumb will be your counter. But we also want to acknowledge the 4 directions with the 4 colors. So your pinky will be the red, the other finger will be white, the other finger will be black, and your pointer will be the yellow. And we're going to watch this video, but I want you to all really count with us, or in your head. You don't have to put your mic on, but just to get practice. And what we're going to do is we're going to count it in Yucateco. But at some point, we'll also upload, in Quiche. If there's any other Maya speaking folks in here that speak other Maya languages, please, we would welcome you to send us the audio and how do you count in your traditions these names, so that way we can upload it together. So let's start. Everybody ready? All right, let's go.
Imish, Ik, Akbal, K'an, Chik Chan, Himi, Manik, Lamat, Muluk, Ok, Chuwen, Eb, Ben, Ish, Men, Hib, Kaban, Etznab, Tawak, Ahaw.
Okay, perfect. So hopefully you all joined. And what I would say is that this video will be uploaded on our YouTube channel in your own free time. I would encourage you to get yourself familiarized with the order and the names. You can start in Yucateco. We'll also upload in Quiche. And again, if we have any other Mayan languages speakers out here that would also like to record in the names of their traditions and in their language, please, we would love that. And of course, all these measurements of time were not just for fun, right? This is also a way that we follow the movement of the sun, but that also equated to agriculture and most importantly, the growth cycle of corn, as this beautiful graphic done by one of our teammates, Gabriela, that shows that movement of the sun. So again, we'll continue to share more graphics with you to help you understand, but we'll also always start the discussions with these counts of time, so we get really grounded with how our ancestors measured time.
One thing too, if you could go back real quick.
Yeah.
One thing too that's really important is that these particular counts of the cycle of the days, right, where you see 95 days, 90 days, 90 days, 90 days, all of those days are based in examining how and observing how the sun moves from a particular location, right? And that location right now, for now, where we are kind of, oh my God, I don't know how to say this word in English. Oh, we got where we are orienting ourselves for now is within that space, so that we can think about what might that look like, or how might that be different from different geographical locations as well.
Yeah, and I think that it's also important when we talk about these four directions or these four colors that we see everywhere, not just in Maya tradition, but we see it throughout a lot of indigenous nations or people throughout, whether you want to name it Turtle Island or Abayala, or we see these four colors, and obviously it changes. I always find that fascinating because obviously, just like what Bree said, we're in different parts of the world and our Mother Earth, and we see things differently. But it kind of we kind of have similar things that we're looking at. But of course, the ultimate goal at some point is for us to take a look at things like this, like these stela, or these pieces of artwork that our ancestors left, and be able to read them. I always say that when I am able to read something like that, I am literally communicating or talking to my ancestors, because they're speaking through these stelas and through these artworks. And we can't do that if we don't know how to measure time in the way that our ancestors did. So this stela is in Kiriwa. We've shown it a couple of times, but now that we've kind of learned a little bit about the long count, hopefully you can see how what this exactly says is the 13 Baktun, 0 Katun, 0 Tun, 0 Winal, 0 Kin, and 4 Ahau. There's more in this stela that obviously has the other counts, or there's other counts, that cycles that our ancestors have. Again, we'll learn some of those, but we really want to start off with the long count and the Cholki first. But this is just one of the prizes, or one of those things of learning. I know I'm not a mathematician, actually quite the opposite, and I'm an artist, but como lo dicen en español, yo hago el esfuerzo para entender, because this is how I'm able to read these things. So with that being said, let's talk about what day today is. I'm not going to give you a pop quiz, but today is Tzi en Quiche, or Ok en Yucateco, and we are in day 5, or number 5. And of course, this day is white and is from the north. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to the fantastic, wonderful Willie.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. We are so happy again to meet and to share also the knowledge of our ancestors. And obviously, today's Mayans, we use applications and we use a lot of graphics. So our ancestors did with the resources they had in the past. And today we're using more of the technology in order to communicate with the next generations. And by the way, tonight is a full moon. And the day, as Chamale mentioned, is Hob Ok or Hob Tzi. And I think we are choosing the topic of ancestors that we'll be talking in a bit. And it's important also to recognize time. Also, we can see it as history. And mathematical equations are important for our ancestors to measure time. And as we learned a few minutes ago, we're gonna use the little finger. Today is 13 Baktun. The second finger, we are 0 Katun, and we are 9 Tun, 15 Winal. And then in the order of the days, today's day is number 10 in the order, if we start in Imish or Imosh. And the day today is 5 Ok, and we will be describing, this today's date. And here we have the graphic, so you can start getting used to the images of the days. Again, 13 Baktun, 0 Katun, 9 Tun, 15 Winal, 15 Winal, and the day number 10. And again, today is 5 Perro, or 5. Yeah, and this is the number. Chamale, I don't know if we want to explain this number to them.
Yeah, we also like to share why these variations existed. There's a meaning behind the way that our ancestors would write the number. We're looking at the head variation, but it's important that we also understand what is the meaning and what you're seeing on the head variance. And hopefully, when we talked about the long count, you recognize a different way of recognizing the glyph for Tun, and that's part of the head variant that we see for the number 5, and also the number 15.
All right, so again, we're checking the numbers: 13, 0, 9, 15, 10, and then the day is 5 Ok, or Hob Tzi, as we call it in Quiche. And this is the beautiful art of Chamale, also representing today's date as a dog, but we're not going to call it the German Shepherd or the French Poodle. This dog is an ancient dog, and as we probably learn different terms in other languages, we'll get to a specific dog. And also here in the Highlands, we honor the day to the authorities, or also we call them the mayors or the ahpop. And I'm going to introduce a word today in Spanish. It's called vara, B-A-R-A, vara. And they say that today is the day of the vara, or the day of the stick, that represents authority. And here on the side of the dog, you get to see these flowers. I don't know if you can see them. They're the red ones to the right, to the left. These contain inside of them important vara. Es con B pequeña. They carry these little red beans. And these little red beans will be very important from the Popol Vuh until today's sacred embellishment. Es cosa sobre or bag. And it's a sacred bag.
It's a sacred bundle.
Yeah, that all the day keepers or akihab have in Guatemala in order to measure time. And this is very important topic we'll get to talk about, where other representation of the day is today. We can go to the next slide. And as you can see the graphics up there, we can see up there, we don't see clearly a dog, but in the bottom, we can see, his teeth. And nahuatl is important because today's date is called Escuintli. For those who are familiar with Guatemala, there's a region of Guatemala called Escuintla. And Escuintla, it means the place of the dogs. And these dogs are very represented by authority. And also in Yucatec, the day is called Ok, but not necessarily means a dog, but it means one step or step itself. And I think that will be important for the next slides, so you can understand the meaning of authority. The dog as an animal, and that represents authority and loyalty, and also it represents somehow justice for our people. And here, people might tag this a raccoon or ¿cómo se dice? Bueno.
I'm going to try to look for the word, but if you ever visit Tikal, or if you ever visit Chichen Itza, you will see these. There's a big sign that says "Don't feed them." They're not as friendly as raccoons. I think somebody might have gotten in the chat somewhere. If somebody can, not a badger. We'll put the name on them for a while, but yeah, I'll get the name.
Yeah, it can be a comadreja or a pisote, ¿verdad? Comadreja, creo que es possum. But the idea is that this is some sort of like a cannon. And as you can see here, on his hand has the stick that we call it vara. And then he is having some sort of like a musical instrument here in this ring right here. But I want you guys to focus on he stepping on something and he's stepping up, or he's moving forward. That one step, it will be important for the meanings for the next slides.
Yeah, and it's also, again, something that we try to do is take the images from the codices or even from the stonework and recreate them in a new way. So we definitely encourage all of those who are in listening or watching this. If you have artwork that you've recreated from these ancient artworks, please let us know. It's important to us that we kind of help our eyes of today be able to see these, because if we look at these through the codices or the artwork that we see on stonework, sometimes they're hard to see if you don't know what you're looking at. So we like to recreate them so we can visualize them with our eyes, our modern eye. Okay.
So this still, like we mentioned in the previous sessions, archaeologists start calling them different names, and one of his name they gave him, it was God El. And then when we question ourselves in communities, it's like we don't have a concept for God, but obviously this is the 50s and the 60s, and they're giving the names. But as if you talk to an elder in one of the communities in the highlands, and you show him this picture and you ask him, who is he? The first thing that they will say is one of my ancestors or one of my elders. That's like the basic meaning to this person, right? So for now, I'm going to call him ancestor. And how do we say ancestor or elder or grandfather in our language? We call it mam. M-A-M. Mam means grandfather in the Mayan language. So I'm going to call him mam now, right? And then I can see that he has a hat, and over his head there are feathers, and there's a bird, and I see a number there. It might be 12, it might be 7. I'm not gonna focus on that, but I can see fire coming out of his hat. And then the most important part here is that he's smoking. And then guess how do we say cigarette or yeah, cigarette or cigar in our language, we call it sick. Sick. That's the name, sick. So he is smoking sick, which is, obviously the colonizers didn't know tobacco. And then they call, how do you call that? And they say sick. And then we end up calling them cigar or cigarro in Espanol. So it's a Mayan word, the root of this word, sick. Okay, so here you'll see something under his legs that it's some sort of like a green snake. And let's start counting numbers here, and you'll see some steps. And I want you guys to start counting how many steps do you see on that in that green band or green kind of sort of snake. Let's count.
So with my pointer, I will help you guys count of what we're seeing. So we see these steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right. So in Mayan numbers, we represent 9 as Jawar. And then this Jawar in various languages, we call him Balam. 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 And Balam, I don't know if we have Kanjobay people today here, but the root Balam is hidden. Hidden. So I would translate it as the ancestor that hides, Balam. Balam. But then the number that today we call it in Quiche, we call it Belehep. Belehep. But in other languages, it's called Bolom. Bolom. Bolom, Balam, and Belehep sound very similar. Bolom. So right now we're going to start giving a name to this ancestor, this mom, as first Bolom, and then we are going to call today's date, which would be Ok. Ok. So we're calling him Bolom Ok. Bolom Ok. And then in some Mayan languages currently today, they call a tree te. Te. In Quiche, we call it che. Bolom Ok Te. It's this elder's name. And he is, obviously you can see the feathers, you can see his cape out of Jawar skin, and then he's smoking cigar. And then this is the representation of 9 steps. Te is also another another language for tree, right? Te, che, or te, it's tree. So we continue. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to interrupt us. Or
yeah, and just as a reminder, sorry, Willie, we want this to be as interactive as possible. We obviously know that there's different levels of understanding here in the participants. We want to encourage participation. So this is a complete safe space. There is no such thing as a bad question or a dumb question. So if any moment something kind of stands out to you, please let us know and interrupt. Obviously, we would love for you to be able to do that. I think from some of these classes that we've taken in Spanish, some of these aha moments that come is when somebody shares an experience or maybe something their grandparents or their grandmothers have said that has connection to this ancient knowledge. So again, feel free to raise your hand, interrupt, or whatever. We want you to be able to participate in this as well.
Yeah, so today's date is Ok, right? But then let's remember that today it's 5, not 9, but we just wanted to honor this person. Eventually, we will reach that day. But then in the codex that is stolen in Dresden, one of the pages, contains the name of this person, and then you can see the number 9, here, and then the glyph of the day Ok. So this would be Bolom Ok. That would be its name on this graphic, and we can go
Willie,
to the
that's
next.
also a jaguar that you see there, correct?
Oh, Java.
And then the day glyph is somewhere around here. We obviously can't see it as much, but here is the name. Obviously one of the things that we always say is that we're not pulling this out of thin air. We're not making this up. And Willie always shares the story about being married to a lawyer Quiche woman, right? And she's always said, always have the proof. And here's the proof, right? So sorry, Willie, if I told your story, but I like that story.
Perfect. All right, so we go to the next one. And here, we see again Bolom Okte or Bolom Yokte. When I put a Y before the Ok means respectable. We're not gonna say sacred or holy, but then when we say Yokte, we are giving the person or this deity a respectful, so he's the respectful 9 dog. And then people will say, but you guys are making that up. No, I think here we will see again the 9. Lo puedes ver ahí arriba, Chamale.
Bruce, si me lo puedes anotar, no creo que lo mire.
Está, mira donde está su mano, direccionado a su vista, hay un 9.
Okay.
Arriba, uno arriba, ahí. We can see that there, the number 9, and then the symbol Ok. And this is his name, Bolom Yokte. And then Bolom Yokte is reviving the first day of 3,114 years before the era, because on the box up there to the left, we see a 4 how, which is the counting of the beginning of time. And not today, but eventually we will get to read, and we will be able to read this basil, where we have all these 7, ancestors here bringing gifts or giving, tributes or offerings to Bolom Yokte, and he's sitting on the Temkach, we call it, and the throne or the seat. We will start changing names as we go by. But yeah, the idea today is also, he's recognized by the hat that he carries with a bird, right? And feathers. ¿Algo más o seguimos adelante?
Démosle.
Vemos para adelante. All right, again, here we see this elder offering, and he has a bird with no head, and this is being offered to this celebration for a New Year's, which happened in the day Lamat or Kanil, but we won't get into that today. But yeah, the idea is that this person or this mom is giving an offering. Seguimos. And here we see again the mom with the hat, and then probably a quetzal up to the hat, and he is giving also gifts or offerings to a young person. And si querés explicarles esto, cómo se mira un poco borroso.
Yeah, so obviously this is a vase that comes from ancient times, and this is the privilege that we have of today is be able to use technology to see this a little bit clearer. And this is why we encourage all of our artists are here just to recreate, redo, because I know personally as an artist, every time that I do this, I see something new. So we just wanted to kind of show you how it looked and how we've recreated it using newer technology.
Yeah, here the rabbit, it might be counting time, but also he's writing. He's like this. He's like the secretary, right? And often we'll see. Yeah, we'll see the rabbit next to elder, but also we will see something called Mico León in Guatemala. We call it Nimchokoch. And we will get into that when we come to the day of writing. But then, yeah, the rabbit is notorious here, and then there is offerings of cocoa among women here. But we want to focus today mostly on what it's inside of the red box, which is a mom, an elder. So yeah, this tradition comes from very various territories, but also up till today, there is the representation of the elders. And these elders, you go to elders and ask for an advice. You have to, when we read the Popol Vuh, we will find that there is the creator and the shaper, but then the creator and the shaper, in this case, is Hunrakan and Tepeu Cucumats. Then they go and ask the elders before the creation what to do or what steps they need to do in order to create life. So here to the left, we have Oshomoko to the left, and then Sipactonal. And these elders are throwing something, into a carpet maybe, or a pop. And then some people might say these are cornmeals, and but then also can be beans. And we'll be talking today about the beans. And here we see it in the graphic on the right side. This woman is, and I can see that they are from Chichicastenango, the Quiche area. And then you put a cloth, and then over the cloth, you will put something that we call vara. It not necessarily is a stick, but vara, it's something that means authority. And then he is counting these red beans in order to, I'm not gonna say fortune, this is not a tarot. This is a mathematical, equation that you will do calculations in order to give advice. And here is when we do advice, it's involved a lot of numbers and distance. How are we going to be advising, someone who comes to us? And so we have names for them. Again, this is Oshomoko to the left, and Sipactonal to the right. And then there's always acting as dual. There has to be a grandmother and a grandfather all the time. And then in the Popol Vuh, in various books, female ancestor comes first.
¿Le doy la siguiente?
Sí, dale a la otra. So here, we will see on top of this cloth, you'll see obsidian stones, and then you'll see various crystals, but mostly they are quartz. And then from here, usually the varas, there varies from different numbers and different day keepers. But the average have of day keeper in the highlands carries 260 beans. That's 20 multiplies 13. And then here, this is not, again, tarot or horoscope, neither of those new age, things. This comes from very ancient times about measuring time and giving advice. That's my experience. I'm giving, probably other day keepers will say something, but this is, you have to work with mathematical equations, distance, and you only give advice, right? And we make mistakes. That's the most important, the most humble thing to say, is that we make mistakes, but we can forecast, right? So here you see groups of 4. Sometimes there are groups of 5, depending on the questions they're being asked. And then you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a row of 7, right? And then we'll get into that in the next classes to come. But we want you guys to see that this happens all the time, every single day across the Maya, today.
Next.
Sí, por favor. All right, so we're gonna take a little break here. ¿Me podés dice que esto va a detener la función cuando comparta la pantalla? ¿Puedo?
Dale.
Muy bien. All right, so we're gonna take a little break out of this, and little by little, please let me know if you see a map.
Yep.
I think last time we showed the map like this, as we know it. And then usually this is how we learn in school that the maps look like. Our ancestors didn't have any idea that this was Guatemala, that this was Belize, that it was Yucatan or Honduras or Mexico. And another sessions will cover what it's borders or how where by it. But then little by little, we want you guys to start getting used to seeing the map this way. And today I'm gonna focus a lot on where's Palenque. Palenque, probably it's around here. Let's see. I'm sorry, my map is not charging. All right, so yeah, it's not giving me the right location, but I want you guys to see this area that it's called the Lacandon jungle. Right here in the Lacandon jungle. And there are different stories about elders putting their foot on water and fish will eat them in order will eat their feet in order to have food. But yeah, Bolom Yokte is somehow around here in the Palenque area. And then I'm gonna be moving a little bit to another region of Guatemala. And for those who have been into Guatemala, you cannot miss coming to Lake Atitlan. Right, Atitlan is right here. Can you see the map? Yes. Can you see the lake? So water, it's important. And then Santiago Atitlan is right here. And I have the fortune to spend 2 days out of the week in Santiago Atitlan. And then we have families, Sutujil, they speak Sutujil here. And then these Sutujil people say the Lacandon came here. When? We still don't know, right? But then it's important to recognize that from here to here, I'm just doing a straight line here, but probably there were some other trails in the past where Bolom Yokte was here, and then suddenly today we have an elder here that it's very important for our culture today. And by the way, you know what archaeologists would call God El, they found another piece of this picture in Tikal, in Petén, And the codex that we were showing you in the Dresde Codex, it's somewhere around here, Yucatan. So we can say that this tale or this story of Mam or Bolom Yokte, it's very ancient, but it has transformed according to different periods of time. Voy a dejar de compartir esto y puedes compartir otra vez la presentación, Chamale.
Yeah. Mhm. Let me pull it up real quick. Hold on. So I think it's important that we're trying to show some of the artwork that we've shown. Just to give you an example, this one comes from that ancient city of Palenque, right? So what Willie is showing is that even though academics or scholars will look at places like Palenque as classic period and quote unquote part of Mexico, they fail to make that connection for whatever reason. And sometimes I think it's because, again, they're looking at it in a very categorical new way of looking at through in borders. They fail to miss that what we know today as Mashimong, or what we explain, there's a connection between Palenque and Lake Atitlan. But we'll get into a little bit more. Willie, dale.
Yeah, so this plate here, it shows, the twin brothers or the twin heroes, one called Hung Ahau, and then the other one is called Yashbalam. We'll get into that when we read the Popol Vuh. And then I want you guys to focus on the turtle. The turtle is breaking up into two pieces, and then there is this elder, Hung Ahau, coming out of the turtle. So this turtle, until today, many languages, we still call it Kok. Kok. That will be the name of the turtle. And that's also a day in the Mayan calendar called Kawok. And then they always relate Kawok to the turtle. But in Guatemala, when we do a Mayan ceremony, if you have the tzite or you have those red beans, when it comes to the day, you have to present them into the turtle, right? And this turtle represents an elder that we call it in the Popol Vuh Xpiakok. Xpiakok. We can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, so again, hopefully you're making those connections with the language of Ok, Kawok, or Ok, right? There is a connection there that if you follow it, and one day, well, if you don't understand it today, but as we continue to talk about Ok, Kawok, and all of these things, we know that there's a connection between this. And what the video we're going to show you is the first time in the Popol Vuh, well, in the English version, that these two elders are introduced. So we'll take a little break here. Enjoy the video. Oh.
Let us simply call upon Ishpiakok and Ishmukane, Hunapu Possum, Hunapu Coyote, to read the days, divine the time, they said to themselves. And so they called Grandmother of Day, Grandmother of Light, for this is how they called the seers, Ishpiakok and Ishmukane, to gaze into the days beyond. Urukan then spoke with Tepeu Kukumats, and they called upon them, the ones who keep the days, the ones who see beyond. Let it be uncovered. Let it be found. How we will frame true people. How we will shape the ones who will sustain and nurture us. Let our names be named and remembered, for it is through words that we are fed. Midwife, patriarch, grandmother, and grandfather, Ishmukane, Ishpiakok, So let it be called, let it be sown, let it dawn, that we are known, that we are sustained, and that we're invoked by model people, the human figures, the human form. Reveal your names, Hunapu Possum and Hunapu Coyote, she who has borne children, and he who has planted them, great peccary and great coati, precious stoneworker and jeweler, wood carver and carpenter, maker of green earth and shaper of blue sky, incense maker and master of craft, grandmother of day and grandmother of light. These names are called for our human work, for what we frame and shape. Cast out your grains of yellow maize. Cast out your true red seeds. Let them tell how things will turn, and how we gouge and carve a face in wood. So they said, to those who keep the days. And so began the casting and the telling, the counting and the revealing, the hand moving over the grains, the seeds, the lots, the days. Then they spoke, the one grandmother, the one grandfather. For this is grandfather, the Tite master called Ishbiyakok. And this is grandmother, who sits at the foot and shapes the days, called Ishmukane. They said, as they cast the days, let it be uncovered, let it be found, say it. Our open ears wait listening. Let the tree be found that will be crafted and carved by the framer and shaper. If this will be the one that nurtures and sustains, then let it be sown. Then let the dawn come, your grains of maize. You Tzite seeds, you hold the days.
Dale, Willie.
Yeah, so today we're not talking about Ishmukane because we're focusing on today's date. But then Ishpiakok is sitting on a turtle, and this turtle carries 3 stars. In modern astronomy and ancient Greek astronomy, they call this Orion's belt. But we don't have an idea who Orion is. But then we will call the constellation of the turtle. And then under the turtle, there are 3 stars. And on top of the 3 stars, we have Shpiakok. Shpiakok related to the turtle, but also related to the Bara, or the counting of the days before we reach the day number 20. Seguimos, Chamale. So here is the connection we have. And we don't care about academics or archaeologists or anthropologists, you know, with their interpretations, and they said we don't have proof. It's like, we don't care. But at least they are doing some research, and then we are relating the hat. Obviously today, Rilachmam has a modern hat, but has a lot of ties, you know, as you can see, you know, different colors. That today represents feathers, you know, represents feathers, and he still smokes a cigar. And then he carries a mask, you know, he's carrying a mask, and the mask, you know, according to our elders in Santiago Atitlan, by the way, Rilachmam, I'll explain the meaning of Rilachmam now. He's sitting in Santiago Atitlan in Solola, and his mask is made out of the tite tree. Do you remember the beans? You know, we talk, you know, these beans don't grow on the soil or on the ground. They come from a flower that, you know, flourish up a tree, and that tree, we call it tite. I wrote it in the chat. So we're gonna split up this word. T in Quiche, it's dog. And te, it's an ancient word for tree. tzite. So the mask of Relax Mam has to be made out of tzite. And this guy here, Bolom Yokte carries the 9 steps. We'll talk later on about the 9 steps, but I want you guys to have the connection of these mam, these ancestors. No sé si querés agregar algo, Chamale.
No, so far so good.
¿Vamos bien?
¿Le sigo?
Por favor. Eventualmente voy a cambiar el estelario para ver las 9 pasos, pero por el momento, yeah, this is a mask made out of tzite tree. So we use the beans for something, but then the mask is made out of tzite. And then in the Popol Vuh, we can read the Ishpiakok, the creators and the shapers come to Ishpiakok to ask how can be the creation. So he throws the beans, the red beans, and then he has a profession, and his profession in the Popol Vuh is translated as Tzite, the one who reads the red beans. That will be his profession. So he's an elder, and then until today, we think we have a lot of knowledge, but we have very few wisdom. And then we should always ask our elders, when we make decisions, because they have gone through a lot of experiences more than us. So, it doesn't matter if you're in California or you're in Massachusetts, you should count on elders to ask for advice. And this is something that we, with humbleness, we ask, to practice every single day, consult or ask for advice to elders. That could be reader of the red beans, right? Yeah, that could be a translation in English. But it's better if we only call them Tzite. Yeah, when you say my elders are gone, that doesn't mean any elder in the community has wisdom. In any part of the country or the planet, it's full of elders that I call my ancestors too.
¿Le doy siguiente o vas a hacer el video?
Dame la otra, quiero ver cuál es la que viene después. Ya, vamos un poquito por acá. So this is celebration where we go visit Relax Mam, and as you can see, besides on the sides of Relax Mam, you always find 2 men called Tirinel. They're also called the teachers or the elders, and they're always, helping Relax Mam to have a cigar. And Relax, Lach means tender, and Ri, it's our elder. That will be Mam, Relax Mam, or tender grandfather. That will be his real translation. No Mam Shimon or San Simon, or Judas Tadeo, as they call them today. But then within the community, everybody calls them the Relax Mam, the tender ancestor.
¿Le doy siguiente?
Sí, damos a la otra. This is another Relax Mam in Zumil, and then according to the Catholicism, the day of San Simon is on October 28th. So most of this is like kind of fusion between colonial times and ancient times. But then we always dance Relax Mam every October 28th in many places in Guatemala. And I heard that there is a chapel of San Simon or Mashimon in New York, somewhere in New York. So it's expanding, its presence, even it's syncretized. Mm-hmm.
If anybody's wondering who's that young, handsome man to the left, is Willie. Le doy
Come on, next slide, please. So yeah, we probably gonna stop here before we go into the next the next part of the presentation, and we're gonna have a little intro into astronomy, right? And please let me know if you see now this program. This one is called Stellarium. In Stellarium, it's a program. You can get it for free to start checking for stars, eclipses, in solstice and equinoxes. And if you can see down bottom, I put the date there, and it's August 13 minus 3,114. This is I'm gonna go a day. No. I'm gonna go. This is 7 p.m. now, but I'm gonna try to go in the early morning, right? So it would be around 6 a.m. when the sun will come out that day. You see, it's 5 in the morning, and this is very dark now. Mars is down there. It's up there, I'm sorry. But then I'm gonna go by the hours. So it's 6 a.m. and we're seeing the sun come out. And then what
Really?
See?
Where are we seeing the sun come out?
In the east.
But is this like in the Mexican Yucatan or?
I put it here in Guatemala City for now.
Oh, okay.
But we can change the location to Yucatan or Petén. But then I'm gonna do Guatemala City for now. So when the sun will come out that day, we will say, oh, today is 0 Bactun, 0 Katun, 0 Winal, 0 King, right? And then it's very, very important that today's fair in Guatemala is August 15, and they call it La Virgen de la Asunción. That's the patron of Catholic patron of Guatemala City today. And then I'm gonna reach maybe 11, close to 11, near to 12. And this is called the zenith. It's very, very close, the sun from above. And that will be, the beginning of the counting of the long count day. Sorry, I'm missing here. Right here. So I'm gonna go back again into some night, during the nighttime. And then here we have something interesting. Let me see here. I'm gonna go back June, and then I'm gonna focus on this specific day. It's gonna be like 2 o'clock in the morning at the beginning of June. I mean July, I'm sorry. And I'm gonna start seeing the 3 stars here. I don't know if you see them. To the east. Can you see them now? These are the 3 stars that we call them Kok or Ishpiakok. Just a few days before the sunrise of August 13. And this happens every single year. Seeing Ishpiakok coming before the sun. And then if you remember the total, they broke into 2 pieces, right? And then Hunahao is coming out. And then today we can see that these nebulas, I think it's called, this is what we call the fire, sacred fire, where all, creation of corn is being made. So in the next sessions, we'll get to see, more about, astronomy related to stories. In the stories, we'll have elders involved. And so, yeah, again, it's important today, stop saying to our family members or to ourselves, Orion's belt. And we can start calling the total, constellation or Ishpiakok. And Ishpiakok is the one who will give advice to the creators when the sun and when the corn will come out. When this is just the beginning of showing you a little bit of astronomy, mathematical equations, long count, Popol Vuh, Stilas, and Rilachmam into our stories. Complicated stories, but we have to keep, practicing in sharing. Yeah, so this celebration, this is Yucatan, and this is called the Chak Chak ceremony. And then they will have a table with a lot of offerings. And these offerings, in each corner, you will have a kid making sounds like a
Frog.
Frogs. Yeah, and this usually happens in the month of July. Any relationship of what I was saying with the Orion, with the total, constellation, and then with August 13 of the Zenith, they are calling for the rain. And usually we have something in the last week of July in Guatemala that we call it canicula. Canicula, it's some people call it like the Indian summer in the north. And then we have like a small break of rain, the last week of July, and then the 2 first weeks of August. And then this is where we start making these rituals. I'm not going to call it a ceremony because ceremony sounds very Christian to me. But these rituals or these acts in order to remember, the ancestors and ask the ancestors to provide us with good food. Seguimos? Yeah, so in another session, we will get to talk about, we don't call it the Milky Way, we call it the Sakayin of the alligator. That will be in another session. And then, yeah, that's also an event that happens previously the spring equinox. But then this white alligator, as you guys know it as Milky Way, we will reach the top zenith of our lives on approximately July 26th. So it's in the middle of that ceremony that I was showing you, the rising up of Orion or the total, and then the beginning of the heavily rainy season after August 13th. And all the skies during the day will be very black, right? As we start seeing in those figures we showed you a while ago. Seguimos, chamale? Okay. So we're gonna change a little bit the topic into previous days of the colonization and la castellanización of our ancestors. But then there is a city, in the 11 Bactún, we call it the post-classic, and we call the year 1524 when the Castellanos arrived. And we had two, I'm not gonna call them kings because we don't have kings, neither Queen Elizabeth was involved or lived during this time yet.
Too soon, Willie, too soon.
Their titles were Ahpop. Ahpop. And pop means mat. And those were these elders were the ones who put together or called people into gatherings. And then their names were calendarical names. Oship is number 3, as someone wrote it there, and Kiech is deer. But then we're focusing on the second Ahpop, not Oship Kiech. Beleheb Tzi was his name. Beleheb, as we mentioned, it's number 9, and Tzi, it's dog. So this is, I don't know if it's coincidence or something happened, but then we have a proof that, when the colonizers came, we have an elder by the name Beleheb Tzi, and then in the classic period, or in the 8 Baktun or the 7 Baktun, he was called Bolom Yote. This is in the area of Quiche. And today, we remember all these elders when we set up the fire. This ceremony or this ritual is taking place in the town of Chichicastenango. And as we can show you, there are different rituals, not exactly as we see them today with candles and people running around the fire, but previously we saw in Yucatan that they use the table, they use the offerings, but then there is not fire involved. So there's different elements that different Mayan communities use in order to communicate with ancestors. And eventually, seguimos a la próxima diapositiva. We will read this book called The Dimensions of Rituality over 200 years, 200 years ago until today, and we will see, that according to different times, we will use different elements in order to communicate with elders. And sometimes you will hear saints. You will hear the name Jesus, because we've been colonized for 500 years. So we will hear a lot the name Santiago, but Santiago, it's the Milky Way. We will hear San Juan. San Juan is the summer solstice. We will hear San Jose, is the spring equinox. So we will hear La Virgen de la Asunción in the prayers, and that will be another Zenith, and we will hear San Mateo, that's another equinox. So we will hear Todos los Santos, that's a nadir, or Santo Tomas, we will call, that's another solstice. Eventually, I cannot change, as I mentioned last session, I cannot change my mom's or my grandmother's perspective because they were Christianized as me when I was a child. But what I can do is that I can teach the next generations that we are older than Jesus Christ and Elizabeth.
Willie, just to quickly interject, last discussion we had a discussion about AKA syncretism, and you told a story about how you were against the Christianity and you kind of so much that you would not step into a church. Obviously, as you continue to learn about this, there's been a way for you to interpret these ceremonies or rituals that correlate with these now Christian names. But I think it's important that we don't necessarily just right now, for the sake of shunning Christianity, that we don't listen, because I think the saints that you're mentioning, and there's a graphic that we'll show you later on, how perfectly those festivals of those saints perfectly align with celestial alignments that our ancestors were seeing. So it's important, right? We'll talk a little bit about further, but that's like some pro tips, right? We're not saying that again, it's whoever's Christian here, we don't mean to offend. But I think it's important that we also kind of look at what these rituals that we're doing, that are naming saints or Christian names, because you can really kind of dissect it and decipher it in a way that makes we uncover a whole different story. So I just wanted to notate that as well.
Mm-hmm. Seguimos con la próxima. Yeah, again, this is a ritual happening in Yucatan where, again, they are giving drinks, not necessarily cigar, to the four, corners, the four bacabs. They call it, some people call them pahuatunes, en quiche they call them ecanels, en español le llaman cargadores, y en inglés the barriers. So ideally is I always say, oh yeah, each direction represents my two grandmothers and my two grandfathers, you know. And yeah, again, this is cities post-classic in the 11 or 12 Baktung. And obviously towns are becoming smaller and smaller. And then people are calling us now quiches. And then eventually we will study what's the meaning behind mam, quiche, anjoval, cacachi, chorti, itza. Those are names given by others, not by us. But then, yes, we're gonna start learning, the real meanings as we learn basics of Mayan languages. And yeah, we have some books here that were very hard to find, and then books that sometimes were not well translated. And I always give credits to people who were writing in the 30s and the 40s about us, and then they have very lack of information. But today, we are in the 13 Baktun, and we can collaborate and learn and research very quick the names of our ancient stories, like the Popol Vuh. And we have another books called we can follow. Ay, no sé si podés explicar un poco esto. Tenés tu micrófono apagado, creo.
Oh, sorry. For the sake of time, let's just move on to some of these books that you were mentioning, and we'll talk about that at some other point.
Okay. Yeah, so Crónicas Indígenas de Guatemala are like colonial books that were written in with Latin words, but then still in Quiche or Cachiquel. And eventually we will reach them, because this is a puzzle, and through colonization, all these books were split up, and obviously are really hard to understand if you read them by yourselves. And that's why it's important for us to create a community. And this community not just involve scholars or artists or mathematicians, but also eventually we will invite elders, and then they can come and also interpret these books with us. This is an old version of Memorial de Sololá. Obviously, there are new updates on this book, but then this is what I had when I was in the US, and I'm showing you, the old books I had back in the 90s was when I was in the US, and I was by myself trying to interpret, and it took me other 30, or 20 years in order to seeing the updates and having connections with Cachiquel elders who are also reading the books along with us in recovering, history again. And then in these books, you'll see tales, you see gossip, you see conflict, but then you'll see a lot of mathematical equations, how they are measuring and they're telling stories through time. Seguimos, yeah, so we have Robert Carmack, in the 60s and 70s, he was the pioneer of the Quiche studies in these lands. But then in this 13 Baktung, a lot of his readings are getting old and we need to update them. But anyways, we need to read these books in order to understand. And yeah, this is called Historia Social de los Quiches. This was given to my wife by another, Quiche lawyer who had it in the bookshelf, but she never read it. And it was important for us to read it now and see, what they wrote about us in the 50s and the 30s, and corroborate with the elders today, and see if this is right or not. I was with an elder today in Momostenango, and he says, I don't agree with what Robert Carmack says. And so he says, I won't read his books. But I said, it's my responsibility to read it and see what he said about the Quiches, and then corroborate and see if he's wrong or he's right, what he wrote. So yeah, like I said, I also was against a lot of scholars in academia, but it's important also to read what they are writing about us and what they have researched about us. Yo creo que, yeah, same book, another one, but Chamale.
Yeah. You know, we've come to a conclusion, and want again thank you know, Willie for being able to share this information and knowledge, and just a good time to mention this Popol Na PDF book club. If you haven't joined up, please make sure that you email us at the new email. We'll add you to this wonderful Google Drive that we're putting together slowly but surely. Hopefully at some point, if we have any kind of where we expand this, maybe we'll have a separate conversation about a specific book that we're reading on the Google Drive. That will be self-led by any youth out there that wants to kind of take ownership of that. But again, this is just an idea of how we're expanding and how we're building community. I think that, again, any ideas of maybe other books that you all have, that maybe some of the ones that Willie just showed that you've been so lucky enough to possess, maybe you can also scan it for us, or kind of anything that you have in your possession. Please don't hog it and share it, but that will be for the community. So if you haven't joined, please email us and we'll add your name to that. And with that being said, let's turn off the keynote or the presentation, and let's talk. So this part, as you all, if anybody has watched the recordings on YouTube, for privacy reasons, we cut this part out because we don't want to put anybody on the spot. So hopefully that will give you some confidence to kind of either present yourself, tell us where you are, or feedback. You know, we'll take it all. So even if you don't agree with something that we said, we'll also take that as well. It's just obviously just want to just talk. So we'll stop I won't stop the recording, but I'll edit this out. But I just want to take some time to share community with you. So anybody care to share anything, introduce themselves, feedback? Now's your time.